your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Agree to Disagree here on the TNAM radio network, because the news always matters. Yep, we are live here from the NewAmericanMedia.com headquarters, TheNewAmericanMedia.com. That's where you click play on the TNAM radio link and listen to us live. We tell you that we're going live as soon as we can get our guests together. It's very flexible, so a lot of people check out our shows after the fact at youtube.com/TheNewAmericanMedia. Click subscribe, leave your comments on the shows. We got about 4 years, more than 4 years of archived content over there. And if you click on a video and an ad plays, hey, if you let that play, it's like tossing a penny into our wishing well. That's one way you can contribute to what we're doing over here at thenewamericanmedia.com. My name's Brian Engelman. I'm your host, and it's good to have you back this post-Independence Day Sunday the 5th of July, 2015. And of course, man, it's a weird world. It's a bit of a weird world. You have, well, let's just say Greece is not having a good time. They're just not, a lot of people are very curious how this is going to play out. Greece is broke. A lot of people are broke. You know, that's nothing new necessarily. Hang on. There we go. Just had to log into that. Yeah, it's one of those where you got to restart your system and then everything pops up. It's like, hey, Adobe, oh, this is out of date. You better fix this. Nope, then you better restart your computer. Oh, hey, it's iTunes. Oh, iTunes is out of date. You got to update iTunes. Okay. Oh, your subscription to Us Weekly is out of date. Would you? No, I'm good. Anyhow. No, it's interesting because Greece is out of money. There's a vote. People are trying to figure out, what do we do about this? Are we going to stay in the EU, the European Union? I got to tell you, it's a bit of a mess. So what we decided to do here is we wanted to bring in Alex Freeman. He is an advisor at the Solutions Institute. He is a contributor of the Fifth Column. And we're going to talk about these things and a whole lot more.
Good morning, Vietnam.
How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing all right, sir. How are you?
Living the dream, man. Living the dream. I'm trying to plant less flowers and more food. That's something we talked about last time. So,
indeed it is.
Yeah. You know what?
You figured out a way to get Merlot to Tokyo yet?
No, but that will be the name of my emo band, Merlot to Tokyo.
You know, I tweeted to Ron Wyden with that hashtag and never got a response.
Hold on, Ron Wyden is, for the people, he is
Oregon senator that is, on the one hand, vastly opposed to domestic surveillance, but on the other hand, was instrumental in getting TPA passed.
Oh, hey, give people the update of what TPA and TPP and Obama trade. We covered that last week, but give us like the cliff notes in a couple sentences here, because it's important that we get it.
The cliff notes is that the whole fast track package, including the TAA, did go through. Obama signed it last Monday, and basically what that means is it's now a hell of a lot easier for megalithic international trade deals to go through and be approved by your quote-unquote representatives and mine without much backlash or stopping it.
And some people say trade. Well, trade's a good thing. The bad thing about that is what?
Trade is a great thing. We think capitalism. You make something, you sell it, you make money. That's great. That's trade. I need something, you made it, I buy it. That's trade. That's great. However, in this instance, it's a matter of undemocratically appointed courts and tribunals deciding what goes, what stays, how policies are made. They direct internal policies of various nations, and major international corporations can ship your job where you made something to another country that has much lower environmental standards, much lower cost of living, and thus much lower daily wages for workers, and ship your job elsewhere.
Well, Obama said you didn't build that. You didn't build those roads. You didn't build those bridges. It takes a village to raise a child. You didn't earn that money. No, and when we're talking about exchanging for goods and services, I just sent this out on our Facebook page. It says you don't pay for things with money. You pay for things with hours of your life.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I like that very much.
We're trading who we are for the amount of toys that we have, the amount of sustenance that we need, the amount of protection, and just it's interesting. Money's just a made-up theory. It's just something that is mutually agreed upon. If the people mutually say, I don't want this anymore, guess what? It's not going to be there anymore, and I suppose that's kind of what we have going on in Greece, isn't it, Alex?
It is just a little bit. But then again, I devote hours of my Sunday to covering this and talking to people about it, and I get very, very little, if any, compensation for it. And by very little, I mean a few pennies. And yet, it's still important enough that people like you, people like me, need to be working on this and keeping everybody out there in listener land up to date and educated on what's going on without the spin that CNN gives you.
Yeah, everybody's going to give you their spin, and hey, I put up my hand and I say that I'll give you a spin as well. I'm very liberty-minded. I'm very, I want things to be as equitable and achievable for most people as possible, and when a system is rigged against you, you know what? You just kind of have to call it for what it is, and that's kind of what we do. And before I brought you in, I said that if people subscribe and let those ads play on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia, it's like people tossing pennies into our wishing well with our AdSense account, which is pretty neat. So I suppose, like you said, with independent journalists who haven't really signed on and been bought and paid for or built our own media empire just yet, it is important that people do get connected with us and kind of stay in touch with what we're doing on Twitter, on Facebook, with our various organizations. So before we kind of get into the heart of what's going on in Greece, Alex, why don't you kind of give us the overview again? I know if people listen to the last show, they're definitely well aware of some of the things that you do. So maybe just kind of hit us with the bullet points of Solutions Institute, Fifth Column, where you can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and all that jazz, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's certainly easy. I am occasionally on Twitter at KBilliesSSR. That's KBilly, 3 S's and an R. We are at the Fifth Column on Twitter. It's the Fifth Column News on Facebook, www.thefifthcolumnnews.com, and you will see our articles shared in both places, plus Google+, Pinterest, Stumbled Upon, other social media sites. Do us a favor. Actually read the articles.
How many people do you have comment without reading the article? I'm guilty of that from time to time.
Quite a few. Every month, you mentioned AdSense. Every month, one of the things that I and my fellow editors at the Fifth Column do, Justin King and Kristen Paquette do, is we sort through how many views every single article received so that we can take what pittance our AdSense dollars and try to divvy that up. And AdSense doesn't pay unless you view the article, and then it'll pay a little bit more if you click on an ad. But it amazes me every single month when I go through this, and I'll see a particular article that I know had, 800-900 shares, or sometimes even 3,000 shares, which doesn't sound like a whole lot considering that there are 8 billion people in the world and over 350 million Americans. 3,000 shares doesn't sound like a lot. But in our social media world, it kind of is. Some Huffington Post articles, for instance, don't even get 200 shares. And I'll look at this and I'll see 3,000 shares for a particular article, but then when it comes down to the end of the month and we're calculating everything and we see how many views a particular article received, that article that received 3,000 shares will only have a few hundred views. And that tells you you're getting too much information from the headline. And of course, we structure the headline so that you get a little bit of information and it's enough to share it. But it just shows that people, even in a community that is trying to gather information and learn more about what's going on in the world without a corporate spin or political, entrenched political spin to it, they're not reading. And that's kind of sad. Not to call anybody out or anything, but...
Come on, you went to all your analytics. Steve Jenkins from Frostbite Falls, Minnesota. You have not been reading the article.
Hold on now. Our cookies don't collect that much information.
Sure. I mean, yes, you're right. You're just like Ron Wyden. You are against the spy apparatus.
I am indeed.
Yeah,
I absolutely am indeed.
Yeah, I think it's beyond creepy. However, I've noticed, at least when I'm clickety-clacking around YouTube, several late nights into early mornings as you go down the rabbit hole of video after video, when the ads play now, I at least let them play. And sometimes I'll even click on their stuff. I'm actually curious to see what kind of stuff they're advertising, and I don't know how many times I saw that Mission Impossible commercial, but yeah, I mean, it's all the little stuff. People are sharing, but they're not clicking it open and reading, and there's a difference. And some of these topics are a little nuanced. I think it's nice to get a soundbite if that bumper sticker quote sums up how you think you feel, but until you actually dig in and get a firm understanding of the ins and outs and the intricacies of it, I think it's dangerous to jump to conclusions too quickly. I've caught myself doing it personally a couple times. I try to double and triple check or verify a story's validity before I move along, but there's so much information and data flying at us on a daily basis. How do you make sense of sifting through it for the important stuff?
Oh man, my base answer to that is I never do enough.
What was that? You never what?
I never do enough.
Yeah.
This Greek deal, for instance.
Yeah.
We've been seeing this in the media for a little over a week now. And really, if you've been paying attention to international politics, it's been going on for a few months. But there is so much there, so much information, and mainstream media tends to rehash the same press releases over and over and over again. Sometimes it gets very difficult to know where to look, how deep to look, who to trust, who to listen to. And today, for instance, Greece had its, I guess it would be yesterday at this point, since it's about 3 a.m. there. They had the vote on the referendum, and 6 hours before their polls closed, starting at about 8 o'clock this morning here at my time, I was delving into just about everything I could prior to the exit polls coming out and the official results coming out, trying to put together a coherent summary, because I know everybody's not going to spend 4, 5, 6 hours or more looking into this.
Yeah, I was going to, but I ended up on the Supreme Court blog. That's a thing that takes all my time these days.
I skipped a few seconds of going to check SCOTUS blog today.
Yeah, by the way, for people that don't know what that insider joke was, on the last show we did, we joked because he's a Supreme Court connoisseur, a junkie, a nerd, a uber geek when it comes to that, so we just kind of laughed about that anyway. Now everybody's caught up. We know what we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, we don't have 6 hours to dig into what's going on in Greece. I mean, is it as simple as a socialist government took over, promised a bunch of luxuries to people to retire early, they were financing expensive race cars, and it was just a culture that had no business having Porsches and BMWs, and they
all got Obama phones.
They all got Obama phones. They're refinancing their house, and then they're taking third equity lines of credit out of their home so that they can finance vacations and cars. And now, shockingly enough, they don't have money. and now, what do you do? Is it kind of that simple? Because I've been hearing a lot of that, but I want to be careful.
If you would listen to New York Times or CNN or Washington Post or even the BBC, yes, it is that simple, and that's exactly the story. But that is not true at all. It's just false.
Okay. Well, then, good. Now I'm in an uncomfortable place, and hearing what I heard and thinking what I thought, and saying, okay, we need to dig a little bit deeper here. Is this kind of like how Iceland sent? Am I thinking right? Is that Iceland jailed all the bankers, and now their country's doing great? Or are those stories false too? I don't want to get too far down the road, but
imagine, if you will.
Imagine, if you will.
A bunch of countries start out at the exact same position.
Okay.
The world economy collapses because the banks don't have the money that they said they had.
When you say money, you're talking about euro notes, you're talking about silver and gold, you're talking about, what do we define as money? Bitcoin? What is money that they don't have?
Money in this case is basically the currency that people agree is currency.
Okay. So this would be the euro. The euro.
This would be the wampum and the beads and whatever else people want to horse trade around for something else.
Yeah, like purple seashells trading with the Phoenicians or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Brings up the Phoenicians.
Hey, yo! I'll be here all week. Try the steak. Yeah.
2 points for Brian.
Ding, ding, ding. I'll take it. Maybe it's all those fireworks that were going off in the sky last night. This whole neighborhood just explodes. It feels like Baghdad or something. Maybe it knocked a few brain cells back into place from 8th grade.
I actually made a joke last night that, hey, this is what Gaza feels like.
Man, there are so many places on the globe that feel that way. It's insane. When I first moved to LA, we went to the top of a apartment building. We knew the manager. He was across the street, and he said, yeah, come up here for 4th of July. And this was right around the time we moved from Ohio to Los Angeles. And, yeah, it was just all palm trees and explosions, and it really felt like you were in Iraq somewhere. It was insane. But, okay, back to things now. Money is whatever we agree upon, wampum and whatnot. So now the bank said we have X amount of wampum, but they actually have 30% of what they said that they did, or is it even worse than that?
Well, I don't know that exact figure, so I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay.
But they all started off at the same place. They started making bets. Keep in mind, Wall Street and the other international stock exchanges is no longer investing. It's not like any one of your listeners, Brian, investing $100 a month, for instance, in the New American Media.
Hold on. I like this idea. Tell me more about my investors. I like
this.
Yeah.
I would, but you're already living the dream. You know what that's like.
Oh, he got me. He got me with my own sense of self-confidence. Doggone it. Learn humility, man. Learn humility.
So these are bets. It's Wells Fargo saying, okay, I've got $100 billion worth of mortgages. You can have 20% of it for $10 billion, and you'll get in return $100 billion after 30 years.
Yes, I followed some of that.
And then all the mortgages, or enough of the mortgages failed that Wells Fargo itself has to pay out money somewhere to somebody. And the actual ownership of the property is, no one knows at this point who's responsible for what. And, a bunch of banks go under. There's a run on the banks. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about at this point, I'm talking about the major international economic collapse of 2008.
I can chime in there because I bought my first home in 2006, right around 4th of July, if I recall correctly, maybe in June. Yeah, and it was a short-lived run, and then it was just years of panic and collapse and loan modifications and watching neighbors go into foreclosure and short sales and empty homes and people squatting in empty homes and bullets being shot into empty homes. and things being vandalized in empty homes, and then property values going down, property taxes going down. Pretty much an absolute catastrophe that was really only about 10% as bad as it really should have gotten. Because the government stepped in, pumped it up with a bunch of phony baloney money, and they never really addressed the core of the problem. And I think that's why some people, Alex, are so concerned about Greece, because they feel like the firm foundation of a basement and then, you know, the stone structure to build this house upon, it was never really put back together from the last collapse, and people are wondering, could this be a domino to clickety-clack and set off a chain reaction again that could even be worse? Where do you stand on that?
I sort of hope so.
I know, I
But we'll
kind
get
of
to
do.
that.
I kind of do too, because it's like anything. You're not going to make any progress until you admit you have a problem. You know, it's
at some point we've got to hit rock bottom. We've got to accept that we hit rock bottom. I mean, you can take a heroin addict all day long, and instead of giving him heroin, give him methadone, and all you've got is another addict. He's still an addict, just addicted to a different substance.
Yeah. So they used to be addicted to what? It used to be mortgage-backed securities and
used to be securities. Now it's these bailouts and treasuries and all of this crap. And all right, so at this point, this is because I know this is heavy international macroeconomics. It gets confusing. So let me.
Not to my listeners, we're Cleveland Cavalier fans over here. Well, at least some of us are. And that's...
No, you don't get to claim that. I've been to Cleveland.
Yeah.
All right.
You're
here's the way to look at this.
Okay.
If we are to flatten this out and turn it into some sort of left-right sort of continuum, some sort of range, if you will, of where this falls in action, where Greece falls.
Okay.
Consider the United States on the very far right, bailing out every single bank that it can, because banks are too big to fail and everything will go bad if we let banks fail. On the very left side, you've got countries like Iceland that say, yeah, the banks made some really stupid bets. They engaged in criminal practices, so we're going to jail all of them. And then in the middle, you have Greece. Greece is a relatively small contributor to the European Union. It was not one of the original members of the European Union. It was brought in by Angela Merkel, or on Angela Merkel's suggestion, because Greece is a vital cultural aspect of Europe. And prior to all of this, Greece represented a little bit over 2% of the entire European Union GDP.
Okay. For
the American listeners to this show, you can think of the European Union in this sense like, I don't know, let's say Oregon, because Oregon likes to ship Merlot to Tokyo. Oregon, maybe, I don't know this to be true, but let's say Oregon contributes 2% to the United States GDP.
Okay.
Oregon just went bankrupt, is what happened in Europe. Greece is basically bankrupt because in 2008, the Greek markets got sapped with the international fallout from the banking and treasury collapses, because all of Greece's banking investments were tied up in the securities, and Greece lost big. So as a result, the European Union stepped in, the European Central Bank, the European Commission, and the International Monetary Fund, my favorite people.
Oh, the IMF. They're great.
Yeah, and instituted the IMF typical economic takeover model for Greece. And for those of you that are not familiar with John Perkins or Confessions of an Economic Hitman, it's a really simple model. International corporations and bankers, in association with international governments, contribute money into the IMF. And what the World Bank and IMF do is they go into troubled nations with severe economic issues and they give that country loans. Those loans are tied not only to interest rates, but also carry very significant requirements and demands that in order for you to receive this money from us with this timetable of repayment and this interest rate, you have to make X, Y, and Z changes within your country for us to believe in you. Well, the problem with, and that sounds good. It sounds fair. So if we're talking about, in this case, I think it was about $200 billion or $300 billion that Greece received. By the way, some banks received over $3 trillion in bailout money here in the U.S.
Nice.
Let that sink in. In the case of Greece, there were changes to social services, that the amount of money that people received for unemployment or health care, things of that sort, were reduced because that's a good place to cut money. In return, or another one of the standard criteria, are that industries that are typically run by the state or run by state-private partnerships, so that there is consistency of method, of regulation, practice, and rule, basically, so that it's streamlined, so that everything is consistent. Those end up, they're pretty profitable. Those get taken over by private corporations, and those private corporations can come from anywhere in the world. And I'm sure your listeners at this point are thinking, Alex, what kind of businesses are you talking about? I'm talking, and specifically in Greece, the shipping industry, the docks, the wharves, the places that control the imports and exports of the country.
Yeah, that'd be important when you're in a Mediterranean place and you're kind of, pretty important.
When you've got major mountains to the north and your country is a peninsula on one of the most important seas in the world, shipping is pretty important. But it's also airports, it's roads. In the case of Greece, it was also post offices. The postal system was privatized due to IMF loans. We can see this happening right now in Ireland with the water situation. A New York think tank, a New York consulting firm, went to Ireland and said, Ireland isn't making enough money. It's not able to pay its loans back. So let's take over their water system where everyone in the country has to pay for water, and we'll privatize that so that the debtors get their money back through those profits, but the country doesn't have anything really to pay back. So while the IMF privatizes the major industries in a country, and this happens in Latin America, this happens in Africa, it's happening in Europe, hell, it's happening in the United States. The IMF requires a government of a country to change its policies and its laws to allow for the privatization of these interests. The interests are able to recoup the money that they loan to that country through the profits of those enterprises, but the loan still has to be repaid by the people. It has to be repaid by the country itself, represented by that particular government, which basically, in a democratic country, is the people. That has to come through cutting social services and increasing taxes. Well, since 2008, unemployment in Greece has skyrocketed. Tourism has gone down. The income and revenue from the postal service or the shipping community or airports went down, or went away actually, because, well, those are now owned by international private interests. So the revenue in the country went down at the time that their loan payments went up.
That's a double whammy right there.
It's a double whammy.
Yeah, it's almost like the end of Braveheart. You know, you're getting pulled on from every side, and you can only stretch so far, and then bad things are going to happen. The horse is just going to quarter you.
Well, the people of Greece today said, "Fuck you, freedom."
How close was the final vote?
It was 60%, a little over 60% to a little under 40%. It was like 60.9, I think, to 39.1.
And so
that was with 96% of the precincts reporting.
And so where does this leave us? Is Greece actually making an Icelandic move here, or is it nuanced
Sadly,
in a different
no.
way? Okay.
No, what Greece is doing here, remember, Greece is doing a middle-of-the-road proposition. They're not quite Iceland, but they're not yet the United States either with the bailouts. However...
So they're not Rand Paul, or Ron Paul on one side, and they're not Bernie Sanders on the other.
Right. What they said was that what this referendum said was that a specific bailout package that was offered on June 25th with a very, very short deadline would not be accepted. The Greek people refused a bailout offer from the European Union, European Commission, and the IMF, called the Troika. These are the people that are the institutions that are determining internal Greek policy and requiring changes to legislation. They're also the ones that are selling off the national interests of Greece, the national revenue generating portions of Greece, and still collecting interest and other debt payments from the country as a whole, from the government of that country.
So they're essentially trying to snatch up and purchase and privatize all of the basic infrastructure that's of any value to the people of Greece and the country.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, isn't that what they what people claim the United States is doing, playing Team America World Police all over Africa, all over the Middle East, basically all over the globe, just like the king was back a couple hundred years ago?
Correct.
Okay, so how does this play out as we ponder Independence Day and what we eventually did to a king?
Well, the way I put it is this.
Okay.
Today, Greeks declared their economic independence from the European Union, European Commission, and the IMF. Alexis Tsipras, the prime minister, was elected in January to end austerity measures in Greece. And the referendum yesterday went a very long way towards the country of Greece itself, as a member of the as a member of the European Union, standing up to the European Union and the international economic community and saying, no, we are not going to accept your demands upon our country in order for this financial assistance that we need due to policies that put us in this place, or in this position in the first place.
And are those the same policies that led to the collapse in 07, 08, or are these slightly different? Like you said, it's not long-term investment.
These are slightly different. So there was an economic collapse in 2008.
Yeah.
The Troika came in and offered assistance to Greece with demands on the Greek economy and the Greek government. Those demands have led to a downward spiral of intellectual immigration from Greece, reduction in revenue to the Greek government, unemployment, or higher unemployment, and very significant austerity that has truly put a strain on the people of Greece.
Now, is this like when George Soros was betting to destroy the Bank of England, and it's almost like you set him up for a fall, and then you watch him fall, and then you try to snatch the pieces up on like Pawn Stars or like Storage Wars or something? It's
pretty much. In terms, a lot of your listeners could probably understand. If you, for instance, Brian, were to foreclose on your house right now, if you were to just walk away because, thanks to the reduction in home prices over the past 10 years, you're underwater in your home, even though you've been paying for it since 2006, 2007. It would cost you money to sell your house because the home values are so low. At the same time, if you bought your house, for instance, for $150,000 during that time, you paid $70,000, $80,000 into it through your monthly payments, but the principal on it has only gone down $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, and it would still cost you. If you've paid the bank $70,000 towards a $150,000 loan, and they turn around and resell it for, say, $115,000, because foreclosure lowers the value of the home, they can sell it for less. They've got your $70,000 plus $115,000 that whoever else comes in after you and buys the house after it's foreclosed. Well, now they're sitting on $180,000. They only loaned out $150,000. So the banks still win no matter what.
It's the golden rule, isn't it, Alex? He who has the gold makes the rules.
Pretty much. I mean, it's international economics, everybody that's listening, is really like a casino right now. This one world economy, new NWO crap, it operates like a casino operated by the mob.
And that, you know what, I'm glad you brought up the mob, because when you said they offered them the deal, it's like, yeah, we're offering you a bank deal, a mortgage deal that you cannot refuse, or you'll be sleeping with the fishies, see, or you'll wake up with your horse's head in the bed. Well, it's a warning. You're going to do this.
In this case, I saw one article today that said that he was offered an offer that he couldn't accept.
A play on that, okay.
Yeah, and
we're going to make you an offer you can't accept. Yeah, I could say.
And that's what the people of Greece said today, is that they're not necessarily leaving the European Union. They're not necessarily divesting themselves of conducting their transactions in euro instead of drachma. They didn't cut themselves off from that. All they did was say, no, we do not accept the terms that you just offered.
Okay, and so then that leaves them now. What position are they in now as we move forward? Where are we stuck? Who's going to be the next badass to puff his or her chest out and make some demands or make some threats or actually pull the rug out from underneath and watch a bunch of plates tumble to the floor, and so everyone goes, no, you can't break a couple of plates. You gotta stop. How does this play out now moving forward?
At this point, we don't really know.
Ooh, fun.
Oh, I put it in terms of some of the major bankruptcies here in the United States since 2008, the city of Detroit or Jefferson County, Alabama.
Yeah, there was one in California.
Was it Anaheim?
No, it was like Fresno, or I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I knew there was
Stockton.
one other one, but the Detroit and Jefferson County ones I'm really familiar with. If anyone wants to learn about the Jefferson County one, because that one is so full of corruption, it will make anybody puke. Rolling Stone a few years ago did an incredible write-up on that one.
Which one? It was. I might have read that, actually.
On Jefferson County, Alabama?
Yeah, I might have. That was when they did all the private financing for some infrastructure project, and it was just a big boondoggle, and yeah, I did read that.
And the situation there was pretty similar to what it is in Greece, actually, where it was a series of refinances after refinances and debt restructures after debt restructures, which is exactly what these offers from the European Union to Greece are. And ultimately, Jefferson County said, no, we can't do this anymore. Too many people have skimmed too much money off the top. It's costing us, we're paying too much in order to consult and structure these deals instead of making the actual payments themselves. the infrastructure project is still not getting built. So screw
it's,
everybody.
it's like the bullet
We're
train to
done.
nowhere in California, the one that's supposed to be high-speed rail, and it's low speed, and there's too many stops, and it's going where people aren't going to be riding it, and it's always, they call it the brown doggle out here, Governor Jerry Brown, and it's just a mess, and I pulled those up.
Oh, man. I did an article a couple of months back on that and brought up the fact that Dianne Feinstein helped on the federal level get the contract for her husband's company to do a portion of that rail.
I am shocked to learn that gambling is happening back here.
Ah.
I am shocked and appalled. Here's your bribe. Oh, thank you. By the way, those three cities, at least according to this article, San Bernardino, California, was the latest municipality to seek bankruptcy protection for its $45 million budget shortfall. And then we also have Mammoth Lakes in Stockton, California. I believe I might have tossed that out there as another one. But yeah, I mean, it's not just Detroit. It's not just Stockton, California, or San Bernardino. It's not just Greece. It's not just the United States. This whole world has been built on a house of cards.
Well, like in Ireland, the major infrastructure project and theft of local resources for private profit is the water there. It was the same thing in Bolivia quite a few years ago, where the IMF came in and said, we're going to give you this loan so that everybody has running water and electricity in your houses. So we're going to dam your rivers. And instead of everybody having free access to well water, or river water, or what have you, and farming their lands, well, now their lands are flooded and they can't afford the payments on their monthly water bills.
Yeah, see, that's why you live off the grid, people. That's why you get your solar panels. That's why you get your geothermal heating and cooling. That's why you grow some of your own food.
Yeah, that's why you plant vegetables, not flowers.
Vegetables, not flowers. That's why you have a cistern or a well or redundant water features and water rights on your property. You do not want somebody to be able to wave this sword of Damocles over your head and threaten you. It is so unhuman. Inhuman, I suppose, more human than human. It's such a bad...
Human, all too human.
Yes. It is through the looking glass. It's bad stuff. And the more self-reliant a people are, the less likely or less susceptible they are to this type of garbage. It's pretty incredible, Alex. It's pretty incredible that it hasn't imploded sooner.
And so that's what the people of Greece said today, is that we're not going to completely go off the grid, but we're going to tell all of you that you're going to respect us. You're not going to completely and totally take advantage of us, rape us, and, take our land, sell them off, and go there for vacation.
They took our jibs! They took our jibs!
The irony there that everybody goes to Greece on vacation.
Yeah.
Wonderful tourist spot.
Yeah, I've never been, but it does look amazing. And the food. Oh, the food. Man, love the food. That was actually my first job in a Greek restaurant. Ah, man. Get some gyros, some gyros, however you want to pronounce it. Love those things.
Stupid Americans. It's not a gyro, it's a gyro.
That's what I said. I said gyros or gyros, depending on your regional dialect. Whether you have a Confederate flag in your yard, or whether you have a Stars and Bars, or a Gadsden flag, or a Gay Pride flag. Yeah, everybody pronounces things just a little bit differently, I suppose. Yeah, is this pretty much the biggest story? I know you did something. Who is that? Is that Anti-Media? Is that you personally? I've seen this series of articles, the 10 biggest stories you missed while you were paying attention to Caitlyn Jenner last week, or the 10 biggest stories you missed.
No, Anti-Media has run a couple of those.
I like those. So basically with Greece, we don't know how it's going to play out. The update is they said, hell no, we're not going to do this, and now we get to see. We don't really know what's going to happen.
Okay, so let me finish that thought too. So right now what's happening is that Francois Hollande of France, Angela Merkel of Germany, and a huge Greek delegation are all headed to Brussels for major meetings on Monday there. So they are hoping that through quote-unquote tricky negotiations,
the same ones we're engaging in with Iran, the same ones that the TPA just allows.
Exactly, something like that.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
That within 24 hours there could be a second bailout offer.
Oh, great.
So
great.
So Greece is still going to get bailed out at this point,
Huh.
is what it looks like. They are still going to remain part of the European Union. They are still going to do business on the euro. But the banks in Greece have had, over the past week, a major run. Everybody in Greece has tried to get as much money out as possible because no one knows what's going to happen. And so they're running off and trying to get as much as they can out of it. Well, quote-unquote capital controls were put in place, and and I hate to tell people here in America, but capital controls, let's say you have $1,000 in your bank, and things go to hell, and the government institutes capital controls, saying you can only pull out $50 a day before we go completely bankrupt in a week. If you were able to go to an ATM and find an ATM that had $50 in it,
because some of them don't. Yeah, the currency just doesn't exist in physical form.
You had $1,000 in your bank account. You are only able to get out $350 until the country goes bankrupt, theoretically.
Jeez.
Because of capital controls.
That's Rooseveltian, isn't it?
I'm not quite sure what it is, but it sounds like theft to me.
Well, like during the Great Depression, I mean, there were runs on the banks and there were price controls and all of these things that just made the problem even worse. I got this article in front here. It says Greeks were hoarding cash and food Saturday amid mounting fears the economy could collapse, cracking open their wallets only to stock up on essentials and stripping supermarket shelves in the process. Mothers, elderly men, and university students were spotted pushing heavily overloaded trolleys or coming out of shops weighed down by bags of food with essentials such as sugar, flour, and pasta on the top of the list. Blah, 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 blah. And, of course, the picture here, it shows... Oh, one was a babushka lady, but this is just a non-babushka lady. I prefer the babushka in this empty shelf picture, but, this is the same thing we saw in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina. It's the same thing we've seen in Haiti. It's the same thing we see anytime there's a natural disaster and people aren't already prepared for the worst. It's a run on the banks. It's a run on the stores. This is something you guys cover on the Fifth Column. It's something you don't necessarily focus on personally very much. I think you said that's more of a Justin King thing, but you guys do have a tradecraft section, and why don't you tell people what that is real quick, too?
Tradecraft section, I should say, Brian, that since our last conversation, I've been trying to do some research on a couple of things and get a tradecraft article up myself.
Yeah, buddy, that's me clapping. I think that the stronger we all are personally, individually, then we'll tell our friends, we'll tell our neighbors, and hopefully that's how little community by community, state by state. That's awesome, man. That's awesome to hear. I like that. Yep. But tradecraft has some neat kind of prepping things, useful skills and stuff like that, right?
That is correct. It's exactly that. In certain situations, what is the information that's really going to help you survive? Whether it be against a military threat or a food shortage or anything like that. It's something to help you in your continued survival and existence. There's actually one that it's kind of interesting on how to be interrogated.
Yeah, I read that one. I'm definitely trying to check out the content you guys have and sharing it here at thenewamericanmedia.com. And yeah, how to be interrogated. There are different, when they play good cop, bad cop, when you realize they're going to kill you either way, so you just might as well go along with it. But, that was one option of like 5 or 6 different ways to either... I remember the one, it's like you're supposed to kind of personalize yourself and talk about your friends and your family and try to connect with them if possible. And then some people that just doesn't work on. Yeah, that was an interesting article. How to be interrogated, because it does kind of seem like a lot of people are getting set up these days, just trying to take them out legally with some trumped up charges over some BS and try to shut things down that way. Or you have people like Michael Hastings, just I don't know, their car explodes and the engine goes 60 yards backward. Yeah, it's interesting when you think about it. How to be interrogated. Why would people prepare for a scenario like that? Well, you read the article and then you just file it away and you hope you never need it. Just like, if you have a couple cases of water and you hope you never use them, an extra month or two of medication, and you hope you don't need it.
In the case of Greece, though, I would hope that some of our tradecraft articles, like how to cache weapons or food or what have you, would be read and taken to heart. You asked me earlier on what I think about all of it, and I said they're not going far enough. And quite frankly, after a lot of, I did my graduate school minor in comparative politics, where we studied a lot about Latin America, for instance. And even in those academic articles that we were reading every single day, there was always an IMF, internationalist, globalization spin to it. And over the course of time, I saw exactly what they were doing to these countries, what they were doing to the people of these countries. And Greece isn't going far enough, in my opinion. They are still willing to go to the negotiating table, and I forget who it was that said it, but they mentioned that the IMF and the European Central Bank were making demands like they were terrorists. And essentially they are. They're holding the Greek people hostage. They're holding the Greek economy hostage.
Well, Barack Obama changed the policy that now he negotiates with terrorists. That used to be a long-standing policy
that executive
he didn't.
order came out just a week or two ago.
Yep, yeah, very recently.
So I don't think they're going far enough because they're still willing to negotiate and come to some sort of terms and settlement with them.
Kind of with like a bullet to their head. Here, let's negotiate. Well, how am I supposed to negotiate with a gun aimed at me?
I don't want to take a bullet to the head, so can you just slit my wrist?
That'll take longer, and it might be a little more peaceful as long as I have a nice warm bath drawn.
Yeah, exactly. And
in a Mediterranean hot spring, if you will.
So we'll
with some feta cheese, with some feta cheese in my iro. Okay, so we're gonna follow this story.
That stuff is peppery enough. That could keep them warm.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to follow this story a little bit here. It's going to develop this next week, and I got a hunch you and I are going to be talking again. But before I let you get going here, it was Independence Day yesterday. What does it mean to you right now? We got about 5 minutes here. What does Independence Day mean to you right now?
It's the 4th day of July, apparently, according to the calendar. A bunch of rednecks go to amusement parks that they know are going to be packed. So that cuts out on the fun. Hey, spend all of your day in line. Sniff those chemtrails, buddy. It doesn't. I don't get all jumpy about Independence Day. I think the meaning has been absolutely, completely lost. I've done analyses. One was probably about 2, maybe 3 years ago. I did another one this week that was on the 5th column of, one analysis was exactly how are the first amendments to our Constitution broken every single day. The second one was, let's remind people that the Declaration of Independence is a little bit more than just the opening few statements. When in the course of human events, blah, 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 blah. It's a little bit more than that, guys. There was also a list of major crimes and conspiracies that the British Crown and the British government and the British military were committing upon the people of the colonies.
And they petitioned their government for a redress of grievances over and over and over and over and over again until they ran out of breath to keep asking the questions to get them to stop abusing them. It was a constant chain of abuses. The people tried to work it out in a different way. That's what they wanted. That's what they preferred. That's what they were begging for. Then it's what they demanded, and that's what they put a line in the sand and said, nope, we've had it. We're stepping on this other side, and if you try to push us there, there's going to be consequences. And that's what happened.
And Independence Day itself, it's not like it just came out of nowhere and randomly some guys in Philadelphia said, hey, I got a great idea. Hold my beer. Let's do this.
Wouldn't it be cool if they were calling it? Wouldn't it be cool if Ben Franklin actually did hand Sam Adams a Sam Adams? If like that's what they were calling it back in the day? I know they weren't, but that would be funny.
That would be clever.
Here, Sam, hold my Sam.
Yeah. No, I mean, this had been brewing, so to speak, for years. You like that one, don't you?
That was tough. That was a good one.
January of 1776 is when Thomas Paine published Common Sense. You had pamphleteers, much like the Fifth Column or the anti-media of the day, that were printing news and circulating that news underground through unofficial channels and educating the people on exactly what offenses were being committed by the British Crown and the British military. And when Common Sense came out, Common Sense was the most published pamphlet of the day, period. It is estimated that every single American had a copy. Not if you had a household of 6 people, then there were 6 copies of Common Sense in that house.
That's almost like 50 Shades of Paine.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Da-da-da.
Yeah. Very popular book of the day. Yeah, this was not fringe. This was not lunatic fringe or conspiracy theorist. This was the thing that people were resonating with. It's like, oh, wow, take a look at this. Yeah, Common Sense is a strong piece of work. Really strong.
And all of the indictments, all of the offenses that were listed on July 4th of that year, people were already incensed and angry about long before then. And if they weren't in 1775 or 1774, when there were actually military skirmishes going on, Baltimore, Ferguson, New York, Anaheim, Fresno, anyone? There were these military skirmishes already going on with the people. And they were already pissed off. So when July 4th came about and these indictments were levied against the king, that was just a culmination of events that had been happening up to that point. And when I go back and look at what indictments were levied against King George in 1776 and compare that to what our American regime has done since 1945,
let me ask you.
I'm appalled.
Hold on. It got really loud there. Were you just mentioning Anaheim and Fresno?
As a result of riots, police shootings.
There we go. Yeah, like Fullerton and
the military actions against the people. At this point, if anybody doesn't believe that that your local police force is not trained by a military or not equipped with military equipment, please call your local representative and ask them about the NDAA 1033 program. Call your local sheriff office, find out what equipment they have, or go to the lea.gov website. I think it's lea.gov, where there are downloadable Excel spreadsheets. There are 2 of them, and they're incredibly large. They update every 6 months for all the equipment historically that is sent to local police departments and sheriff's offices across the country, probably in a hometown near you.
Oh, yeah, they're getting the MRAPs over here, and Posse comitatus out the window. The military's blending with the local police force to protect and serve. It's just getting...
You can't tell the difference.
There is no difference. You cannot tell the difference anymore.
And that's a specific indictment against King George, that the military was running regular police missions.
Yeah, and the people were getting sick of being spied on and shaken down and harassed in the streets and harassed in the...
Spied on? You mean domestic surveillance?
Yeah, they
so,
were...
Yeah, I read these indictments and I say, where is our Declaration of Independence now? Why are we not throwing off this tyrannical yoke? It was thrown off long before.
Yeah, and you read Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, who said the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time by the blood of patriots and tyrants. And, you know, it's like I'm begging the world to come up with a better solution than what I see on the horizon. And that's why your tradecraft section, I think, is important. That's why paying attention to stories like Greece, I think, are important. That's why, you know, that's why I do what I do, and that's why you guys do what you do. And Alex is right about... the National Defense Authorization Act. That's kind of the way I got connected with him, was through PANDA. Dan Johnson started PANDA, People Against NDAA, and then he started Solutions Institute. And you and I are both advisors over there, and, you know, we've done a couple shows. And I know you mentioned writing for the Fifth Column and such, but tell people real quick here in about a minute about what you're doing with Solutions Institute.
Solutions Institute, what we do with that is we educate anybody and everybody that wants to become active, whether it's through putting an ordinance through your local city council or creating a nonprofit organization, learning how to market your particular activist or off the grid, off the mainstream product. We do it all. We've got activists that consult in public relations, media relations, marketing, technology, website design, and government relations, you name it.
Excellent. Yeah, it's Solutions Institute, solutions-institute.org.
Should also promote right now that AtCon 3 is currently in its production phase, right? That's going down in August.
Okay, yeah, that's coming up. Do we have any headliners that we know of, people that are going to be speaking?
I don't. I'm actually not working on the organization committee this time around, but this will be the third ActCon.
Yeah, I assisted on the first one. Bobby Rodrigo ended up running it. But yeah, and it's one of those too. You can volunteer, and these we all need help. You know, volunteer a little bit of your time to do a couple of tasks. It's like you can empty a swimming pool really quick as long as a lot of people have a bucket and a lot of people form a chain. It's you can make short work of things. So yeah, I mean, definitely reach out to Solutions Institute, solutions-institute.org.
And we didn't quite define that. AtCon, for everybody that's listening, is an online seminar. It's held on a Saturday. They're usually about, 8 speakers. They get 30 minutes each. Everyone has a Q&A. And each of the speakers are, quote-unquote, experts in their field, or at least experienced in their field, and can offer tips, personal experience, and inspiration on how everyone can get involved, because if no one gets involved with anything, even at a local level, knocking on your neighbor's door, then nothing's going to change, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
and, you know, that's why we all just got to get connected on Twitter, on Facebook, all that jazz. So check him out over at, what is it, thefifthcolumnnews.com, is that correct? Thefifthcolumnnews.com.
Thefifthcolumnnews.com, yes.
And then, of course, solutions-institute.com. K-Billy Smooth Sounds. What was that? That's from a Tarantino movie, right?
It is. K-Billy Smooth Sounds of the 70s. I ripped that off completely.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I was like, K-Billy SSS. What was he, back in the SSSR?
K-Billy's SSR. It's K-Billy Super Sounds of the Revolution.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate your time, and we will be doing this again, Alex. So everybody make sure you follow him at K-Billy and all of that jazz. Coming up next, we're going to be talking, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to move over to sports. NBA scout, former NBA scout, current NBA consultant Zach Barris is going to join us to talk about free agency and all of the things that you might have missed. Maybe a little bit of draft recap. Definitely Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson, LeBron James, all these rumors, LaMarcus Aldridge, and more. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to Agree to Disagree with Brian Engelman, and this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the newamericanmedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. You know, there are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. Well, it doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.